So when Bill introduced me, he said that I had taken my LLWL, my Licensed Slave Worship Leader courses, and when I was done that, I found out that I really wanted to learn more. More about the Bible, more about history of Christianity, more about this United Church of ours. So I enrolled in St. Andrew's United Church College at Saskatoon to take my master's degree in theological studies. I've enjoyed taking a real variety of courses, and this fall, I say unfortunately, this is my very last course. I'm now done with the degree. One of the courses they offer at the 3 theological schools in Saskatoon every year is a course on the Gospels. Every January, just as we're turning over the new year and turning over the new lectionary year, we get to study the gospel that's going to be on the lectionary. And it's a great way to start the year. So the first year I went, we studied the Gospel of Luke. It was wonderful. Instead of reading little snippets every Sunday morning and trying to piece the story together, we got to spend 8 hours a day for 5 days a week just looking at the gospel, looking at the flow of the material, looking at the way it was written, and understanding why Luke emphasized certain things in his writings. We read the entire gospel through and saw how the story of Jesus evolved. And believe me, it makes a lot more sense to read a parable when you understand why Jesus was telling it. One thing I learned was that Luke gives a prominent position to women in his gospel. The other gospel writers, Mark and Matthew and John, they hardly mention women. And if they do, it's kind of a throwaway line. They say, James and John's mother, or Zebedee's wife. They don't really tell us the women by name. Luke has more passages about women than any other gospel. In fact, there are 23 unique stories. Without Luke's writing, we would never know about the miraculous conception of John the Baptist in that 75-year-old mother, Elizabeth. We would never have heard Mary's Magnificat, or the prophet Anna, who went to the temple when Mary and Joseph brought Jesus there as a baby. And the wonderful story about the weeping woman, the woman who anointed Jesus' feet with her tears and the oil. That story is only told in the Gospel of Luke. More importantly, Luke's Gospel describes the significant roles that women played right from the beginning of Jesus' ministry. It is often through the women's stories that we hear Jesus' love and his tender compassion, and how he helped the marginalized people, and how he helped with their suffering. From what scholars have told us, Luke was a Gentile, so he knew what it was like to be downtrodden. One group that we sometimes take for granted are the female disciples, and they're called the women from Galilee. So, just as a point of clarification, disciples, the word disciples means followers of Jesus. So there were many, many disciples. The word apostle means teacher. So it's the people that Jesus trained to spread his message, and Paul. But sometimes the translations we get of the Bible sometimes interchange the words disciple and apostle. So in Luke 8, 1-3, what we just read this morning, we heard that Jesus traveled through towns and villages preaching, and a number of people went with him. They are listed as 12 apostles, 3 specific women, and others. It says that the 3 women named had all been healed from evil spirits and demons. So that explains why they had so much faith in Jesus. He had healed them personally. They had witnessed firsthand what Jesus could do. So the first one is Mary Magdalene. And it says she was afflicted by 7 demons. And those are likely some type of mental illness. And Jesus drove them out of her body. Mary Magdalene was finally happy again. The second one is Joanna. Joanna is the wife of Chuza. Chuza has a prominent position in the king's court. Now the king at the time, the king of Galilee, was Herod Antipas, so that's Herod the Great's son. And Chuza, of course, managed his household. So this means that Chuza was in a very high position. He was very powerful and likely very wealthy. So Joanna was likely very wealthy as well. And the third woman is Joanna. We don't know much about her, but scholars say she was a widow. But the one thing we do know is these 3 women had the freedom to travel and had sufficient financial means to travel. In fact, Luke says these 3 women used their own money to help Jesus and his disciples. They financed Jesus' ministry. In the course I took on the Gospel of Luke, we had a choice what to do for a final assignment. Of course, we had to read a book and write a paper on it. But in addition, we had to take inspiration out of the book and create a piece of art. And we had to express Luke's gospel visually. So we could create a banner or a tapestry or pottery or just anything we wanted. And then we had to say how our art could be used for 3 different lectionary readings. Not an easy feat to meet all these requirements, but I did get an A. Yes. Anyways, I chose to paint a picture. So as you can see, and it's up on the screens now too, this is a picture of the women from Galilee. You can see Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Susanna. And in my mind, these women were so happy after being healed by Jesus that they likely started to dance. Dance and celebrate. Another thing I learned in my course on the Gospel of Luke was that Luke is associated with the earth element air. Luke's Jesus is very inspirational, and the Greek root of that word is spire. So think about similar words. We've got inspire, conspire, perspire. God speaking and sweating through us. We've got words like respiration, expiration. Your breath goes in and out. God's breath, holy breath. And Luke's writing is full of these words. In my class, we looked at 4 aspects of air. We looked at wind, wings, sky, and clouds. I'm going to ask anybody, just put up your hand if you can see any of those elements in my painting. One person, yes, thank you. One person can see some of my elements. 2, 3, 4, good, 5. Oh, we're getting there. Thank you. Thank you. So in this painting, we can see the wind. because it's blowing through the women's headscarves. You can see it up in this one maybe. And blowing in their dresses, swirling their dresses, so we can see all the shades and hues when the different lights hit their dresses. Wind is Jesus' holy breath flowing through the women to heal them. And can you see the birds in the painting? Yeah, they're kind of small, but there are 5 of them in total. So the wings on the birds symbolize that the women have flight. The burdens of the day are lifted off them. And the clouds? Well, clouds are transformational. We often look up at clouds and dream. We say, that one looks like a dog. That one looks like a dragon. Or we could dream about how our life could change. So in this painting, you'll see that the cloud is starting to dissipate into the heights. And I know Ron Hopkinson is here, and I know he knows a lot more about clouds than I do. But I've heard that clouds that are wispy like this indicate that change is coming. And in the middle of the painting, the sky is clear, indicating that all their concerns are being cleared up, and they can have clear communication with God. So as I was thinking about these 3 women, I could imagine what they were feeling. They had just been healed by Jesus, and they were so happy about it, and so taken with him and his message, that not only were they dancing and celebrating, but they decided to do something concrete as well. They decided to use their own money to finance Jesus' ministry. And Luke said they became disciples as well and followed Jesus. I don't think it's too hard to imagine that they played an important role in ministering to the throngs of women who were part of Jesus' ministry team, and did a lot of encouraging and counseling and supporting of ailing women. Women would tell them of nonstop bleeding, or of being bent over for 18 years, or of how upset they were because their only son had died. And when these women were healed, or their loved ones brought back to life, they would have rejoiced and danced together. It would have been quite the celebration. We know that the women from Galilee followed Jesus throughout his ministry, as they are mentioned again in Luke 3 more times. We know in Luke 23, verse 49, that they were at Jesus' crucifixion. And again in Luke 23, verse 55, they are mentioned in connection with Jesus' burial. They followed Joseph of Arimathea to the tomb where Jesus is laid. Then they played the role of family. They go home and prepare the spices and the herbs and the ointments for Jesus' body. Then in Luke 24, verses 1 to 6, we learn that the women went back to complete the services for burial, but they're confronted with an empty tomb. It isn't the male disciples who find it. It's the women of Galilee. And the women are the first ones to hear the message of resurrection. According to Luke, in the empty tomb, the women from Galilee are addressed by 2 men in dazzling clothes. They hear the message of resurrection from these messengers of God, that Jesus has been raised. And the women are the first ones to proclaim that Jesus is alive. So the women of Galilee play a very important role in Luke's narrative of Jesus' life and ministry. They were the support staff, but they were also the compassionate ones. And when it came time to celebrate, they would not have hesitated to show how happy they were by getting up and dancing. Because we all need to celebrate good things in life, especially in these uncertain times with COVID-19 lurching over us and our worries about how to keep safe, how to keep our children safe when they go to school, how to keep our seniors safe in retirement homes. We need to find ways to bring joy and hope into our lives. We need to celebrate the good that we see around us, whether it's in a friend phoning us unexpectedly to chat, or someone dropping off some food at our house, or in someone sewing face masks for people in need. We need to express joy and hope in these unusual times. And we need to be expressive in our gratitude to God. Our life of faith is a dance with God. We need to constantly celebrate God's presence and blessing. Thanks be to God. Amen.